Hello everyone, welcome to MediaNama. Recently, Mozilla Foundation, which runs the popular browser Mozilla Firefox, wrote a letter to WhatsApp urging the platform to implement specific changes to its message forwarding mechanism in order to combat misinformation in an election year. Secondly, civil society organizations in India like the Internet Freedom Foundation, Article 21 Trust, and others have also asked the Election Commission of India to initiate a model code of conduct for politicians and digital platforms in context of concerns about the use of AI by politicians for election campaigning. We have with us MediaNama founder editor Nikhil Pava, who will speak to us about the measures that companies should take in order to protect election integrity. Hi, Nikhil. So, firstly, Mozilla has asked WhatsApp to nudge users to pause and reflect before forwarding any message on the platform. It has recommended that adding disinformation warning labels like highly forwarded, please verify, these kind of warning labels to such messages in order to tackle virality of information. Do you think this is an effective measure, and what can WhatsApp additionally do to address the issue of fake news?
Thanks, Saraswati. I think, look, the most important aspect when it comes to messaging, and especially disinformation and misinformation, is the reach that it has. And that reach usually gets amplified because of ease of forwarding on WhatsApp. See, WhatsApp is not a social media platform. Its visibility, its engagement, um, that content is not determined by any algorithm,
Mm,
or but it is basically content that gets forwarded either from person to person or person to group. So the speed at which a message can be sent from one person to the other makes a difference to how many people it goes to over a period of time. What happens is that it makes it difficult for someone who's fact checking it on the other end to fact check it before it becomes huge, in a sense, right? So,
right.
and especially with disinformation campaigns, the ability for platforms to of people spreading disinformation to, like it was earlier, message 256 people at one time, forward a single message to 256 people at one time. They can't do that anymore because WhatsApp has already restricted it.
Mm,
So a cap on how many people, how many people can be forwarded to, but also a cap on that, or just something that nudges people to pause and reflect. Like a pop-up that might come out when that happens, will just make it an extra effort for them to forward it. So that really helps. Now, a disinformation warning label for viral content, such as highly forwarded, please verify, is
mm,
tricky because will they add that to everything that is highly forwarded? That is possibly the case, right? Because they can't determine what is disinformation or not, because WhatsApp is an end-to-end encrypted format, is end-to-end encrypted platform. So
mm,
they can't read. What that means is WhatsApp cannot read our message. They can't tag a message as disinformation. So are you going to say that people should verify every message that is highly forwarded? Maybe that's still a good idea. I don't see an issue with this, with either of these moves. What WhatsApp can additionally do beyond this is perhaps treat new accounts differently. So a lot of people end up buying SIM cards, creating new accounts, and then using those to basically start and join groups and use those to forward. So perhaps it could be that forwarding could be restricted, especially during election season or for a period of time, to say, maybe two forwards in an hour, or two forwards, or maybe, 10 forwards in a day or something like that. This will prevent, people from proliferating viral content on WhatsApp, basically, or spreading it or trying to make it viral by sending it to multiple places, especially by creating new accounts.
mm,
The other is on the inverse side, which is what can groups do? So, is it possible for it should be possible for group admins to basically stop or prevent or limit uh, forwarding of messages to that group. So if you give that control to to group admins, it makes it easier for them to also for people to stop randomly forwarding messages to multiple groups in one go. Anyway, that ability is limited, but then it also keeps the groups a little sane. So I think that's the other good thing that they could do.
Right. Another thing that Mozilla has mentioned in its letter is that WhatsApp should disable its community feature and limit the size of broadcast list to just 50 people. And there should also be a cap on their usage to twice a day. What more can be done to specifically restrict broadcasting capabilities on WhatsApp? And what are your thoughts on disabling the community feature?
I actually don't agree with these ideas. Broadcast is a tricky one because what broadcast is about is that you can only include in a broadcast list those people who already have your number, which means that they're on WhatsApp with you, and at some level they because you have their number and they have, more importantly, they have your number. It's a mutual consent to receive messages from you. It's not like you're randomly forwarding it to a group, or you're randomly forwarding it to a lot of people in one go. So that's why I think WhatsApp has kept the broadcast limit high. Uh, uh,
Hmm.
I think it should be treated differently. I don't have a clear answer, but if you really want to restrict the spread of messages at that point in time, so you can limit the number of people that you can broadcast something to. Instead of 256, you can make it 50.
Hmm.
Um, and limiting the usage twice a day, so I mean, I don't think it really does any harm. But let's say, for example, if I'm a publisher and I want to make sure that my news goes out to, let's say, a list of important people that I want reading mine, then it will just restrict my ability to get my news out. We use WhatsApp for that as well. So
Right.
I'm not sure I agree with restricting the broadcast feature. Secondly, I completely disagree with the disabling communities. I mean, I am in several communities. We run an internal community for MediaNama as well. And just disabling the community feature makes no sense. It just allows people to find connected groups more easily. And then what some communities have done is that they have kept a different group for a different person, and they've just patched them together into a single community so that you can find those groups more easily, right? So it keeps that
Right.
it's like what you have channels on Slack. So disabling the community features doesn't really help. It's You can still forward those messages to all those groups, whether community feature exists or not. But community does have an announcement feature. And so
Hmm.
perhaps you could limit the number of announcements that can be made within a community to, let's say, one a day or two a day or something like that. No one's doing 50 announcements in a day anyway, right? So
Hmm.
there, I think rationalizing that makes sense. But disabling community, I don't quite agree with that idea. I think it'll just there are enough useful communities out there that at least I'm on, which I will miss if this gets disabled just for elections.
Right. So, while there are concerns about limiting the flow of information, how much can be done in an encrypted ecosystem like WhatsApp, Signal, or Telegram to regulate information flow?
Right. I remember, back in 2016 when Ravi Shankar Prasad had started, who was India's IT minister then, he started talking about fake news on WhatsApp in particular.
Hmm.
And let's not forget that it was the spread of hate speech and disinformation in 2013, which had led to the Muzaffarnagar riots.
Hmm.
So there is disinformation on WhatsApp. Political parties do create like multiple groups for each district, each area. And someone I remember was telling me that one political party has over 1 million WhatsApp groups spread across different districts and for different purposes, managed by different people. Even another political party I remember had in a particular region given like they've got group people to manage certain groups for messaging. WhatsApp
Hmm.
is the most widely used media platform in the country. It's also not a social network. It can't be tracked. And, end-to-end encryption is a very, very critical part of keeping communication safe for us. And um, uh, that's the privacy that we get. On the other side, the same platform can be also used for spreading disinformation that can't be tracked. And
Hmm.
so, really, content moderation is something that we can't expect of a platform like WhatsApp. But what we can expect is product level changes, which is what they have done. So,
Hmm.
they restricted the number of people you can forward a message to in, I think, before the 2019 elections in India.
Hmm.
They can restrict it even further now. So they can, what they're affecting is a virality and the velocity of the spread of information. I don't want them, and then they can mark messages as highly forwarded because it's a tag
Hmm.
that gets added every time it gets forwarded in some. So a counter gets started, right? So there are non-intrusive mechanisms of tagging information. I think Mozilla's suggestion of putting a pop-up for highly forwarded messages
Hmm.
is also a good one. Um, so there are those things that can be done at a product level. I don't think anything can or should be done at a content level because that will end up breaking into an encryption.
Hmm. Hmm. So, Mozilla had also conducted a study in which they had found that WhatsApp's election policies do not actually really reflect the realities of the app's evolution into a public social network rather than just a private messaging platform. What are your thoughts on this, and what are the gaps that you feel WhatsApp has failed to address like in context of India's information ecosystem?
Well, firstly, I think I completely disagree with Mozilla when they say that it's a social network. Um, because a social network is basically an interconnection of people, which has a both a public and a private component. There is
Hmm.
nothing public about WhatsApp. It's all private. Even the groups that we have are private. People might be using it for public usage,
Hmm.
but I think it's also very dangerous uh, for WhatsApp to be treated as a social network or treated as a public social network, not a private messaging platform, because that opens them up to other forms of regulation that are applicable uh, uh, to public social networks,
Hmm.
which are not where messaging is not protected by end-to-end encryption, where messaging is not private. If I'm messaging you, that's between you and me. If I'm messaging a group of 20 people, that's between me and the group. It's not like a Twitter or a Facebook where anyone can read what I'm messaging, right?
Hmm.
So I think this Mozilla's classification or treatment of WhatsApp as a public social network is wrong. It's factually incorrect, and it is a dangerous way of looking at WhatsApp because that might
Hmm.
then open them up to other things like
Right.
regulatory oversight that social networks might have, including copyright issues, content moderation
Hmm.
um, requirements. WhatsApp doesn't moderate content, and it shouldn't. It's just
Right.
messaging between two people. So I wouldn't. I think Mozilla has done a disservice by trying to classify it as a public social.
All right. Coming back to India, India's Misinformation Combat Alliance has partnered with Meta to launch a dedicated fact checking helpline on WhatsApp for tackling fake news. Are these fact checking helplines even effective, given that WhatsApp had launched a similar tip line feature during the 2019 elections? What are your thoughts on this?
So, I think there's an old saying that by the time uh, uh, I've forgotten the exact saying, but it's like by the uh, bu- uh, misinformation moves like twice or thrice as fast as uh, or bad news moves twice as fast as good news or something, right?
Mhm.
Misinformation spreads really virally, and by the time it's because it sort of appeals to an emotional belief that people might have, um,
Hmm.
and then the ability and then they start sharing it with other people because it sort of speaks to their bias, and they want to project that bias to other people as well. And we've
Hmm.
seen this in social media across the board. um, Fact checking is meant to debunk that. um, I'm not saying fact checking is bad, but by the time something gets fact checked, using a helpline,
Hmm.
especially when it comes to AI generated content, when it comes to or when it comes to manipulated images, or it's a story or an article. Um, uh, by the time it gets checked, it's already spread widely. Um,
Hmm.
and so I think the first port of call for checking misinformation and disinformation has to be at an individual's level, where we need to use our own brains to figure things out.
Hmm.
Um, but everyone gets fooled every now once, at least
Right.
once, with these things. So it's a legitimate problem. A helpline helps in terms of identifying what is wrong, or what is misinformation, and
Hmm.
it creates the room for counter information or for corrections. Unfortunately, that correction doesn't really spread as much as the misinformation does, right?
Hmm.
And so I think, while this is a good initiative of having a helpline, it
Hmm.
could be the Misinformation Combat Alliance, it could be another fact-checking network or whatever. It doesn't matter who it is. I think we need more fact checkers out there. And frankly, fact checkers have a job today because journalists are not doing their job of tackling fake news and misinformation. It is literally a journalist's job to correct the record
Hmm.
when it comes to misinformation. It's just that some of the misinformation is so complex and so difficult to pass that you need specialized outlets that are
Right.
able to check the audio to see whether there is manipulation of audio, to uh, zoom in and check whether
Hmm.
photographs have been manipulated, look at the metadata. There are various mechanisms that they all have. Um, and so fact-checking helplines are not useless,
Hmm.
but I don't think they really solve the problem at scale. But it's not that that we shouldn't have them.
Right. Also, Meta has recently announced that it will label generative AI content on its platforms. But on the other hand, it is also testing an AI bot for WhatsApp in India. Like recently, news reports have talked about it. Gadgets 360 had experimented with it in India.
Mm, mm,
So, in context of use of AI during elections, and what the civil society organizations are also saying that ECI should come up with a model code of conduct for this. Do you think labeling content is an adequate measure to combat deepfakes or other synthetic content that can add to misinformation during elections, or should we just prohibit the use of AI completely by politicians until
mm.
election?
So if you prohibit the usage of AI, how do you prohibit the usage of AI by surrogates, right? You can
Mm.
maybe prohibit by usage of AI by politicians. I think I would not agree with the idea of prohibiting the usage of AI by politicians either. It allows, for example, for customization of communication. For
Right.
example, if I'm a politician and I want to reach out to each individual voter, and I
Hmm.
have information on them about what their concerns are, I can actually craft automated communication to talk to them, and even have a voice conversation in my voice with my voice modulation, um, about their issues, and I can have a reasonable conversation with a chatbot that can vocalize that conversation, right?
Hmm.
Um, I don't think that's a bad thing. It helps. It makes the voter feel that the politician knows them and understands them. It allows a politician to communicate with the voter directly about their concerns. It allows for collection of some of this information as well, so the politician understands their concerns better. There is also language mod. AI can be used. Generative AI is used for speaking in other languages. The Prime Minister demonstrated that with the use of the
Hmm.
Bhashini. These are all positive use cases.
Yeah.
I think by banning AI altogether, we might lose some of these useful cases, right? For example,
Right.
for a national politician going to who may be from whose primary language might be Hindi, going to let's say uh, Hyderabad and talking in Telugu is
Hmm.
a big boost for
Right.
not just for them, but for their entire political party, right? And to be able to communicate their message better. Usage of AI I don't think should be banned. But on the other hand, I think um, officially labeling content,
Hmm.
requiring that is a good idea. The EC can also require that.
Hmm.
I think but what none of them will be able to address, no matter what you do, is a generation of deepfakes and other
Hmm.
kinds of synthetic content, because those no one's going to claim to have created that,
Exactly. Hmm.
right? You can perhaps hold politicians accountable for publishing a deepfake on their account or
Hmm.
spreading a deepfake from their official account. But you can't do anything
Right.
about unofficial activity. You can't detect it. You can't edit. You can't label it. You can't just block all synthetic content on platforms either. I think we need to be a little more rational about how things work. Labeling is
With AI.
of
Hmm.
AI content is a good thing. Is a good idea, but only reasonable, rational, responsible players will end up labeling it. The content that they've
Hmm.
created, you can ask platforms to do automated labeling, but someone who's
Hmm.
using it for incorrect usage, for disinformation, will always find other mechanisms to remove the labeling. And then how do you do
Hmm.
labeling
Hmm.
for text? Are you going to,
Exactly.
if a politician is going to
Hmm.
send out a message uh, uh, in a tweet that may be AI generated, will you ask them to
Hmm.
also label the text in their tweet as AI generated? I don't think they're going to do that. Then how do you then prove that it is AI generated? And then what action do you then take when say that it's AI generated? Only someone who does this badly will get caught out. I don't think it really makes labeling is not really the solution as far as I'm concerned.
Thanks, Nikhil. For our viewers, do check out our coverage on various measures taken up by platforms to combat misinformation during elections on our website, medianama.com, and also follow our YouTube channel for more such explainers. Thank you.